If I could talk to myself before I was diagnosed, I would say it's scary right now because you're having these really scary thoughts about, like, not feeling like you're worth it and you deserve to live, but you do because you're alive. And if you're alive, you're worth it. You don't need any other, you don't qualifications to be worthy of life. Like, you're already doing it. And I would say that just keep going, because there are going to be really low days and there are going to be really high days, but you're going to go back and forth. It's not ever going to just be the one.
I guess I would tell myself to have a lot more self-confidence and belief that even though I have those disabilities, that it's something that I can work through. Because even though I was relieved when I was diagnosed, I also kind of thought, not that I was dumb, but that I was not as smart as other people and that I wouldn't really be as successful. And the last 7 years has taught me that it's not something that's going to hold me back necessarily, as long as I work through it.
Yeah, I would say don't quit. Never give up. Just keep pressing forward, because you're going to get, you're going to improve in skill. You're going to improve in social skills and stamina. You may not be the next Bruce Wayne, but you will be an extraordinary individual with a wonderful ability.
Okay, so this one time, when I just came to college, I was manic and I wasn't sleeping at all. I was completely out of it. My boyfriend's car broke down and he needed to buy a new part, so I took all the money out of my bank account and gave it to him, even though he didn't even want it. So he just took the money and gave it to my family. But that's just what happens when you have bipolar disorder. For me, bipolar disorder is this vacillation between extreme highs, mania, and extreme lows, depression, because I have type 1 bipolar disorder, which means I go all the way up and all the way down. The mania, that's basically like poor judgment, poor impulse control, lots of energy, not sleeping, maybe not eating. And there's like in-betweens, like all that in between, and then there's the depression, which is like not getting out of bed, not wanting to function, not feeling completely hopeless, and it's pretty bad.
Asperger's is a form of autism, and autism is a very wide spectrum. Asperger's is just one part of it. It means you have difficulty in social situations, reading social cues such as eye contact, maybe carrying on a very long conversation with another person, and things like that.
ADHD, that basically means I'm really hyper all the time. I have a lot of energy. It's also really tough for me to pay attention for a long period of time. Executive functioning disorder is like I have trouble remembering information, so tests have always been difficult. It's also tough for me to plan out like long term what I need to do. So if I have a research paper or some sort of project that's like semester long, it's really tough for me to plan out when I need to do the work. So a lot of times I end up struggling with those types of projects. So I gone all the way through school, like elementary and middle school. School was always just a big struggle. I wasn't exactly like failing classes, but I was always struggling and I was getting in trouble a lot. And my parents were always worried about me, so I always knew there was kind of something. I saw the way other kids acted, and I knew there was something different or something wrong with me. But I never really did anything about that. So freshman year of high school, I struggled again, and my parents decided to have me tested. So in the summer after my freshman year, I was tested, and that's when I was diagnosed with ADHD and executive functioning disorder.
So my senior year of high school, I was very, very depressed, and I decided that I wanted to end my life. And that's when I went to the counseling center at my high school, and I told them what was going on, and so I went to an inpatient psychiatric unit at a hospital near my house, and that's when they told me that I had bipolar disorder, and that's when I got officially diagnosed with bipolar and OCD. But before that, it had kind of been this entire process of not knowing, like, what's wrong with me, are these symptoms happening to me, and it was just very confusing.
Well, when I was a young Padawan learner, aka very young, for those of you who are not in the know of Star Wars mythology, my mom noticed that I wasn't developing as fast as some of the other children were. She noticed I wasn't progressing as much. I may not have been up to par socially with how other children were doing at the time, so she thought something was amiss. So my parents took me to a specialist, or speech pathologist, occupational therapist, whatever it was, a specialist, if you will. And they tested me, and they came to the conclusion that I have a form of autism known as Asperger's syndrome. And that was when I was 11 years old, so I believe I was going into the 5th grade at that point, in elementary school.
So getting diagnosed was in some ways very scary, but in other ways it was a big relief because I could finally understand why everything was happening the way it was happening and why I was thinking these thoughts and having these feelings. So even though it was scary to finally have a label because it meant that this is something permanent, it also meant that I can start the process of educating myself and others.
My reaction to my diagnosis when I was at the age of 11 years old was I thought it was a death sentence. I thought I was going to be dead within a week or so. I thought it was the worst thing that could happen to me. It's like I kept asking the question, why me, why all this stuff is going on? I just want to be normal. I want to fit in with the other students and my fellow classmates and all that stuff, so that was very difficult. So I did think it was a death sentence, but my family was able to coach me through it and guide me through the process of understanding it and going through the motions with it.
I was definitely relieved. I remember my mom sitting me down and talking to me about it, and I think she was kind of expecting me to be upset or like embarrassed. But it didn't bother me at all. It was more of a relief because I had known leading up to that there was something different. So it was really just a confirmation of something I already had kind of known in the back of my head. So I wasn't upset by it at all. It was more just I was relieved to know exactly what it was. Well, ADHD, I mean, just generally paying attention in class. Like sometimes I'll find that I drift off and then something important will be said and I miss it and I don't realize it until the test comes. Or later on and then it's too late. Executive functioning disorder, the biggest struggle there has just been test taking. I've been able to work around like the whole long-term work thing. Like I usually you work on that, but just test taking has always been difficult. I've never had like one study skill that works best for me, or one thing that does best. So the executive functioning disorder has really made tests a struggle. But ADHD at the same time has been positive. Like even something as simple as I don't need as much sleep as some people do. Like I can channel energy, more often, and I can also, even though I get distracted, I can also focus on one thing, and I can focus on it really, really hard, and then work towards that. So.
I almost always tell others about my disability because it comes up in some way or another, because I'm at a point right now with my bipolar where it's still affecting my daily life, like every day. So if I'm working with someone like in a group project, they probably should know, in my opinion, just so that if I'm not responding or if I'm, being undependable, they can at least understand why. And then when I'm super dependable the next day, like on the ball, they'll like, oh, okay. But I would say, though, that I don't always tell everyone, if that makes sense. Like I would keep it to myself if it's not going to interfere with our relationship.
Usually I don't really like go out and say it very much, not because I'm ashamed of it. It's not something I announce, and I only say it if it comes up. But recently I've been saying it more because I've been trying to get an internship and a job. So when different employers look at my resume, they say, what's DAP, what's Delta Alpha Pi, and I explain it to them. So I've been more open with it, and sometimes I worry whether they'll not judge me, but they'll be a little hesitant. But at the same time, I usually use it as an opportunity to say, this is something that I've worked through. Like I understand what it takes to work through a challenge and stuff like that. So I usually try to use it as a selling point more than anything.
Asperger's syndrome, autism affected my life socially as far as when I was in school, I was bullied a lot. I was called a lot of different names. It was hard for me to carry on conversations at times because I didn't always understand what the other person was saying as far as their humor is concerned. I didn't always get the jokes that they were aiming at, or some of the current events they discussed. I didn't always understand all the details of those, so it was very difficult, and I got bullied a lot because I guess because I was an easy target, let's just put it that way.
I was never really bullied per se. I mean, my friends would joke with me because I was in the DePaul program in high school. So they would like make jokes about it, but I would joke about it myself. But I was never bullied. I I was never really, even from day one, I didn't really put up with that. I think my personality made it pretty clear that I wasn't really going to have that. But I saw a lot of the kids that I was in the program with were bullied a lot, not just made fun of, but they were picked on quite a bit in high school.
Boy, so deep. Okay, get into the trance. If there was an actual cure for autism or a cure for Asperger's syndrome, would I take it? I would say no, because with my Asperger's, I have a very good memory. I'm very good at organizing things and putting things together, putting events together, and things like that. So if I took the cure, I wouldn't have those abilities that I have now. So if there was a cure offered, no, I would not take it.
Now, I've gotten used to living with it, and I've also learned to turn it into a strength in a lot of ways. So, and I'm not really one. I think you have to do the best with what you're given. I'm not really one to, completely change things about myself. I'd rather work through challenges than, have an easy fix to it. So I wouldn't change it at all.
If there was a cure, I know this sounds really bad, but I would take that right away. I mean, that sounds horrible because in some ways it has been a blessing in that it's taught me so many lessons and it's like, made me closer to my family and my community, but if it could just go away, that would be incredible. If I could never had to feel down, like in that lowest low ever again, and if I never had to worry about, extreme behaviors and mania, like that would be wonderful.
Where I would reveal my secret that I am Superman, because right now I'm just so used to being Clark Kent. So sorry, I'm leading you on. I'm not. My name is Ryan. Just for the record, I am not Clark Kent. I wish I was, but I'm not.
We should use that in our. I'm not Clark Kent.
I am not. I wish I were. But anyway, that's a long story for another time.